Welcome, everybody, to Quit Day, 2025 Quit Day. It has been said that the second Friday of every year is where everyone quits their
New Year's resolutions.
Yep. So we're doing part B to part A. If you'd like to, go back to last week's episode, the first episode in 2025. We had Matthew Slaughter on. It was amazing. We're doing part B. We're recording at the same time because we're going to elaborate and pull into the conversation topic around Quit Day. Yeah. Because last week, what would you say we did in this last episode? How would you couch a few of those, the outline, so to speak?
Yeah, well, we talked about a lot. We talked about values, we talked about pillars, and we talked about standards. We talked about how a lot of people will default to like a lot of what's, like a lot of like what I want to add or what I want to do, without thinking about a lot of their whys and hows. We talked about how if you focus on this checklist, without understanding why things made it to a checklist, typically they won't stay on that checklist for very long. Yeah. We also talked about how people typically know what they want or know what they ought to do, and they do things that they don't want to do and why that happens. Yeah. And I think that's probably a good launching point for what we'll likely talk about for quitting.
No, exactly. And so it all stemmed from January. You get all these DMs, all these text messages from your friends, family, people that are interested in.
Sounds so egocentric.
No. It is if it's not based off of you helping them.
Sure.
They're looking to get something from you,
right.
Which is you're a coach. You coach people in physical health, in physical fitness, and you've done this for years, decades.
Yeah. Maybe
2 decades almost now. And so what's cool about that is people know that they can come to you. Well, everyone's trying to do the whole let's get healthy, let's look healthy, let's be healthy, let's accomplish a goal or whatever. Well, he sends a text message, and if you want this text message that he sends out with the details on if you're interested in starting your health journey or getting healthier, you can just comment, DM wherever you're watching FVP, or send me the Matthew text, or just let us know that you want the text, okay? You send on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. You can send it, we'll get it, and we will send you the link to it, okay? Because we're going to put it up. But with all that being said, that was where it stemmed from, right. The text message. Well, that led to the idea of today is Quit Day.
Right.
We're going to be giving this to people on the 2nd February in January. It's Quit Day. Why do people quit?
Second Friday in January.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Not second day in January, second Friday in January. Mm-hmm. Why do most people quit?
Yeah. I think it's hard to say like one thing. I heard a really great thing about prayer recently that was like, well, all the reasons you don't pray. A lot of it's like people don't know how or all that, but one of the reasons that stuck out to me was you don't pray because you don't pray, and people get into we're habitual people, we're habit looping people, and so if you don't do something, that is a habit. And again, this might not be profound to anybody, but it's profound to me. It's like, well, habits are not only what you do, it's what you don't do. And if you don't do something, the best thing to answer that moment is like, because it will happen. There will be days where you didn't get the run in, or there'll be days where you had the cookie.
Not true.
Or maybe not for you. Not all of us is self-disciplined and majestic as T-Love.
He just majestic me. Don't majestic me. My goodness.
But the problem is if you miss a day, don't miss another. And the reason that you don't do something, right? Like giving yourself permission to say I like how Google sets goals for their employees. They actually have them set these aspirational goals and say, I know you're probably going to hit probably between 70 and 80% of them. And a Google employee might comment and say like, well, it's actually 75 point whatever. The principle is they don't expect perfection. They expect an aim. I have a chief aim. And I know I'm going to fall short of that aim, but if I fall short of that aim, I'm still falling higher, failing better than when I was before. And it's okay. Like to say, I will only do this goal if I get it 100%, that's really dogmatic. Versus if you do a principled goal that's more focused on how and more off of averages, more off of the posture and the heart of the goal that you set, you give yourself a lot more grace for when you don't do it and things happen, because life is unpredictable. Things will happen and you'll go, well, man, I missed my workout, so I guess I better just not go the rest of the week. No, awful. That's silly. Give yourself the grace to say things happened. And so I'm not going to let it happen again. I'm going to take a moment and recommit. And I'm going to say, I committed to doing this. And I'm not going to let this new potential pattern, this new potential habit to prevent the habit that I really love and I really want to yearn for and I really want to be a part of. And that's probably one thing. We don't do something because we didn't do something. It's going to happen. It probably already happened. In the first 2 weeks, you did something new. And you said, I want to add this thing to my life. Or I want to not do this thing in my life, and you did it anyways. It's okay. Don't do it again. And just get back on the train. Just give yourself permission to keep trying.
You want to know something that I would like to add something to this.
Yeah.
Okay. If I think about why I quit things, I think of two things. First, I think it's really, and this at least echo and add to your point, okay? Well, I think why a lot of people quit something is because they're trying to add complexity to complexity.
Sure.
Okay? And that's really difficult to do because your lives and yourself is already so complex. That's really hard. And so you're kind of setting yourself up to fail. If your life is simple, straightforward, you've done an inventory of self, you understand yourself, and you understand how you spend your time, you understand how your calendar is put together, you understand things, okay, great. Then you can add something more complex because you've removed the complexity. You understand it. That's not the case for most people, in my opinion. Yeah. But what's easier to do and what's more helpful is if you add something simple. What's the smallest thing you could add to your life that would be a domino effect, that habit could be a domino effect for the rest of your life?
Yeah. This is really good.
And so what I love to say is, or to think about is, stop worrying about trying to add complexity to complexity because you're setting yourself up to fail. What I like to help people do, and what I like to help myself do, is add the simplest, smallest thing to your complexity because you can.
Yeah.
And you're not focusing on what you can't.
Right.
You're focusing on what you can.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah. That's really good. We're a population of people that loves conditions.
Yes.
Like, I think I do this. I think I got to have like the right conditions to do the thing that I promise. Have you ever been here where you're like, I know I need to work, but before I sit down at my desk, I'm like, my desk is really cluttered. I need to like clean up my desk before I get this done.
Sure.
Or my fingernails are really long. I should clip them before I do this task.
Sure.
Or whatever. Like we make up these conditions to do the thing that we know we should do instead of just doing the thing. So I heard this really great analogy. It was don't say, I'll use working out as an example, training as an example. It's like, don't say I don't have time to work out. It's like, no, with the time I have, what training could I get in? Just to get real, like this is just, it might offend some people, might not, but we prioritize sex in our marriage. We think it's really important to have intimate time in our marriage. And there are also 4 children in my household. And there are times when it's like, man, we don't have the time to have this majestic candles lit moment with sexy time that is amazing. And it could be, well, you say, I don't have time for this sex that I've had in my mind in this version of sexy time that I want. Instead, we say, what version of sex can we fit in this time? Because it's important. And I don't want to miss another day. And I don't want this to not happen. Same deal with training. It's like, it's not, well, I don't have an hour and 15 minutes to get my perfect workout where I get strength, gymnastics, accessory, and conditioning in, so I'm just not going to work out. Silly. That's so silly. It's saying, no, I have 25 minutes before my daughters wake up. So what can we do in 25 minutes? You can do a lot. And if you do that, you're developing a pattern of this beautiful thing that you know is important. Even if it's not the version of the thing you want, you're instilling yourself a pattern of importance. Like, people don't talk enough about, even like things like maintenance training or maintenance sex. I think I heard this on a podcast recently. It was like, people don't talk about maintenance sex enough. Where it's like, hey, like, you and I, not in a great place. We gotta actually bang this out. Like, we gotta actually get in a better place. We gotta do that. I know my wife's in the background. And I know I want it to look like this, and I want it to be like this, but we don't have that time, but we do believe that this is important. And I think we would all benefit greatly from not getting so predisposed to obsessing over the perfect conditions and saying, what conditions are present right now? And then how can I fit this principled thing or this thing I've committed to into this time in some attitude, even if it's a small version like what you described? That's better than nothing. We get into this binary state. I will only do this really big thing or this thing that I think is important if X, Y, Z. And we all have examples. I think you're probably some that come to your mind right now. It's like, well, I didn't do the thing because, well, I didn't run today because I didn't get to run my 7 miles. But a 2 miles would have been great. Would have been way better than 0. And I think that we could all benefit from going, my version that was my ideal didn't get reached, but I got some variation in, and you do that more and more. Imagine the mathematical increases in that thing if you did it no matter what the conditions versus saying, no, I'm not going to do it because of the conditions. That's kind of the binaries that we give ourselves to say, well, I'll only do it if I get this much time or
I think that's The War. One of my favorite books, and I think this is probably one of your favorite books, is The War of Art. Yeah. Okay?
Right.
I know that's one of your favorite books. I've heard you quote it many times, an extreme amount of times. And the point is, I think one of the main overarching themes is when a certain time strikes, we will create art.
Right.
We will do it no matter what. We will create this thing. We will invest energy and effort in this direction. We will focus here.
That's good.
And I am immediately erasing the chances of striking gold.
Yeah.
And having a moment worth remembering if I am consistent in the process.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. And so what's fascinating with what you're talking about is, yes, I have found that to be true in every area of my life, from relationship to training to creating to thinking to dreaming to, if I can, no matter how I feel, I don't let my feelings determine what my work.
Right.
I don't. I can't.
Yeah. Right.
Now, sometimes, obviously, I do because I'm human. It's a part of the human experience, is for us to learn how to have self-discipline in those areas. But I think that's really key. And so we have this. That's one thing that I was thinking of when you were talking about, okay? Why do people quit? This is the Stop Quitting episode, okay? Yeah. We're going to focus on that. So if you don't want to quit anymore, if you want to think about how to help yourself not quit, this is for you. Yeah. This is for me, and this is for us. Okay, so the second thing that I think about in terms of quitting, just even personally, is if I'm quitting, then that thing that I'm quitting didn't have enough weight.
Yeah, that's good. You set the wrong goals. You were bad at setting goals.
It didn't have enough weight. I didn't either value it enough. I didn't prioritize it enough. I didn't let it have the correct amount of weight it needed to have. Yeah. For example, I love God, man of faith. You were just talking about prayer a little bit ago. I couldn't remember if it was in this conversation or it was just because you were talking about
it. It was 7 minutes ago.
Yeah, it was 7 minutes ago. Okay, great. So, and here's the point. The point is, if I believe that I can hear from God, then I believe I've heard from God. Now, if I've heard from God, and that's possible, then there's a weight to that thought, idea, and thing that I've heard that is way heavier and way weightier than everyone else's words.
Sure.
Ever.
Sure.
So why do I not give it that amount of weight? Why is that? Why do I think of it, that thing that I've heard, the same as everyone else's words? The same as the words that I've randomly read on some magazine that I was walking through the airport, and that thing means more to me than what I just heard from God. There has to be a weight to the thing that we say that we care about or we don't actually care.
Yeah.
It's not actually of value to us. We won't see it through. We will quit.
Yeah.
So I think weight can grow. Weight needs to decrease in some areas of our lives that we've given weight to. I think those are really two key things to why someone quits.
Sure.
When you have experienced someone quitting, how do you talk to them about it, whether they feel guilty or whether they what's some things that are really important to you to address with them in the middle of it?
Yeah, I think again, I go back. I'm a framework guy, and so the framework that I look to a lot is Lewin's equation, and going, well, it's a product of the person or it's a product of the environment, and we should be fighting both. We should be fighting for the things, and so even going back to the previous point, we should do things in spite of conditions, but we should still change those conditions. Like if we see patterns, root of intelligence, root of maturity, is pattern recognition, pattern apprehension, or like looking, going. The word leaves me. Pattern anticipation. I'm anticipating this pattern, and so I'm going to prepare. And so if the question is, what do we say to people who quit? It's like, well, let's evaluate. I love breaking it into two categories. It's either I'm a person who made goals in this way and I copied somebody else's goals and I impressed them upon myself with actually having a personal why, or God didn't impress upon me that it was important. Love that. Or there are conditions in my life that make it almost incompatible for me to have this goal. You know, like if, for instance, let's use you as an example. You are an endurance runner. You do ultra level racing, like that takes many miles, and there is a non-zero amount of time that has to exist for you to get that training in. And there are more days where you need to do 13 plus miles, and there are other days where it's like the W is 2 to 4 casual as I'm talking on the phone, be able to do that. Like, and that's a difference. If you do not have the time to leave your house and do that, that's a bad hobby. You know what I mean? Like that's a bad selection of hobby, especially if you're like putting yourself in conditions of like, I want to be able to do this thing. You're like, you don't have the conditions to even speak that goal. You need to change conditions. Like, and a lot of people will go, especially like in this time, they'll say, well, New Year starting, the conditions of my life are going to be brand new. No, they are not. Your conditions on December 31st were the exact same as January 1st, unless you change those conditions. Right. And so you change the environment. An environment could be, I'm spending time, I love the R's. It's like my resources, my rhythms, my role, dang it, I forgot the last one. Rhythms, resources, relationships, and then my roles. I need to evaluate all of those things because they take away from my ability to add or subtract. Everything can fall in those categories. I have regularly scheduled meetings. We like, for instance, we don't get to do things on Thursday nights. Sure. We don't get to do that. That's our date night. We've decided that's just our date night. We've booked our sitters out for like 6 months. We're paying them. We made it to where that's a condition that will not change. And there's other flexible conditions. It's like, but there's things that I need to change to accommodate other things. It could be relationships where it's like, for me to have this new relationship and spend time with this new couple or this new family or this new thing for my kids, I need to say no to this other thing. And it goes back to, why do people fail? It's like, well, they didn't change conditions. They took the same conditions from the previous year, put them into this new year and go like, why did my new things didn't work out? Well, it's like, well, how could it? Where would it go? Maybe you did it because literally the first year or the first week of the year is also tricky because you have more time the first week of the year typically because you're starting off with a vacation day. And so there's this illusion of time that is that. It's an illusion. You do not have more time. You have this 1 week that has a couple of days of flexibility, and then you're going to go back to the same rhythm. And so people didn't change their conditions. The other thing is they didn't have the right things fueling the goal creation or the resolution, or they weren't just that. It's so funny we call it resolution. Like to be resolute means to be fixated, to be concrete, to be like, like think about how little time we put into some of the decisions and some of the ideas that we have. I'm a creative guy. You're a creative guy. At any given moment, at any given hour, I have hundreds of ideas of things I could be doing. Yeah. Most of my time is saying no to things and being resolute about the yeses. And I don't think we spend enough time saying no to stuff to allow for the conditions and also the resolute nature of saying yes to something. That's a big deal. And most people don't do either of those things. And that's where I would start. What happened? Was it the person in the things fueling that person to make the resolution? What gave you the idea to start this diet? What gave you the idea to do the ultramarathon? What gave you the idea to start the business? Let's go back and ask like, well, why? Oh, okay. You really look up to this person.
It takes about 3 whys.
Right.
I found.
Three to 5 whys. Yeah, exactly. So let's go. And most friends don't do that either. No. Like, dude, that's super cool, man. Hope it works out for you. Versus, dude, why do you want to do that?
Yes.
I'm curious. Yes. Oh, man. Well, okay, so you saw it. Why? How long have you been following this person? Oh, well, why do you like this person? Oh, you look at them as a hero. You've seen them do it. You actually told yourself over the last couple of years that you were going to do this, and this is the year that you said, you know what? It's time. I can't stop thinking about this. God has impressed upon me that this thing needs to happen this year, and I'm going to timestamp it, and I want you to help me hold accountable. That's really powerful. Versus, I don't know, I might do paleo. Like, okay, but why? Why? Well, I think it aligns with the time and the season of my life and my family. My wife can actually cook those things. I can cook those things. It feels like less of a mental load or a cognitive load for me to do this. And I feel like when I have done it in the past, it's been productive. And so I'm going to pursue that more. Woof. I can tell this person has thought this through. Sure. Versus, I don't know, I might do this thing. And I think that's my goal for the year. It's like, dude, no chance. I'm not betting on you. I'm happy you told me.
No, exactly. I think people need to stop, myself included, stop thinking about things that are impossible and think about things that are possible that could lead to the things that are impossible. Yeah. So, the running thing, it's
which, by the way, is incredible. Like, you're on what, day 600, 500?
No, go a little. I'll hit 1,000 later this month.
You will hit 1,000 days
in a row. It's a big month for me. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's backtrack that.
Sure.
What were the moments where you said, was this a Tom Hanks Forrest Gump situation? Where it's like, I just decided to go running one day.
Sure. No.
Or was this?
Yeah.
Thought
yeah.
through.
No. It's an interesting thing because it didn't start off this way. It had so many steps.
Pun intended.
So many. Yeah. So many steps in the stepping. It wasn't, I want to run. I never thought, I think I'm going to be a runner. Actually, I genuinely believe this idea that no one actually likes running when they start running. Sure. I think you have to learn to like it, and you have to have reasons that come in as you start doing it. Sure. I don't think anyone starts off like, oh, man, I love running. Why? Because no one's body likes the pain or you have to learn endurance. It's not something that you just naturally have a lot of.
Right.
Some people may have more than others. I get that. But like, you have to figure out why or how you could like it, or how it is benefiting you. It's got to be, the weight has to be added in some way or another. Anyways, I was thinking about, and I can answer your question, maybe ask it more specifically, but I was thinking about, because there's a lot, but I was thinking about the environments and the thing that I've committed to. Because there was a moment where I said, there was a moment on my endurance journey where I said, I would love to run for a year to see what happens. Well, what's the minimum amount and what is me committing to running? Because is it 100 yards? Is it a mile? So I had to put parameters. What is running for me? Yeah. And I had to define what running was so that I could say I had run for a year. And here's what running meant to me. Is it amount of time? Is it a distance? Is it a pace?
What is it?
Exactly. And I can tell you exactly what it is that
For
I've
you.
committed to over this amount of time. Here's what it is. It has nothing to do with pace. Because there's going to be days I'm going to be sick and I'm going to still have to go run. There's going to be days where I'm in a lot of pain and I'm still going to have to go run. There's going to be days where I'm very tired. And guess what? I'm still going to have to go run. But what is running? Running has nothing to do with pace, in my opinion. Nothing. Now, granted, that doesn't mean there's a difference between walking and running. And so, I think you kind of know what that looks like and feels like. But I didn't want to put a pace to it because I knew that there was going to be races where I was going to be in a lot of pain. And so I was going to do the best effort that I could in the running.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's not walking. It is running. Now, the pace may be super slow, but you know what running looks like versus what walking looks like. Okay?
There's actually a technical definition for that.
Go ahead.
It's like, when a hill becomes a mountain, it's 1,000 feet of prominence. But for walking and running, it's if both feet are off the ground.
Yes.
So if you want to speed walk, you have to keep both feet on the ground at the same time. You can't be, you can only have one, you have to have one foot connected with the ground at any point in time. Running, there is moments every single stride where both feet are off the ground.
Yep.
And that's the difference.
And you can feel it, and
Right.
you know what it is.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily, everyone knows that. I didn't necessarily write
It's
that
a fun
down.
little.
Yeah. And
Now
so
you know the definition
no
of running.
pace,
Yeah.
2 miles.
Okay. 2 miles.
2 mile minimum. That's what felt like running to me.
Okay.
Because you can sprint a mile
Right, and be done.
and be done. But like, I set the 2 mile minimum because that's what felt like. That's what running felt like to me.
Sure.
And I felt like, you know what? No matter how I feel, I can do 2 miles.
Yeah. That's great.
So yeah, 2 mile minimum.
But tell me about like what led, because I'm curious and I think I know the answer. What led to I wanted to make this change at all? Because it was a goal, and I don't think it lined up with the start of the year. It was just something. Yeah, it was based off of probably pain.
I don't care about the start of the year.
Yeah, it's great. That's great.
I want to be able to set a goal that matters at any moment of a year, and not have something else determine when I start it.
Sure.
I want to be the one that determines that.
Right.
This is really important to me because I want to be able to stop and start things when necessary
That's great.
or when the best time is. So, what was the question again?
What were the conditions prior, or what was the stimulus? What initiated the thought that I need to have this thing?
Yeah. Okay, so I felt like if I don't try to figure out what my limitations are at that time of my life, then I may never figure out what I'm capable of. That was the big reason why, is I want to see what I, Trevor Lovingood, am capable of. And if I want to see what I'm capable capable of in my relationships, if I want to see what I'm capable of mentally, spiritually, emotionally, what's going to help me is if I can understand it physically first. I want to see what a life that is lived is capable of. And I want to see what my own personal limitations. Because I felt like I saw people and I saw myself putting limits on my own life. And I wanted to break, what are those limits? Practically, actually. And then let's do what it takes to see what those are. Now, that's super, good idea, you know?
I don't think so. Because it's principled.
Sure.
It's easy something I can go back to and say, I can ask you in the form of a question. Am I living a life that tests this limit? Because that is something that is principled. I want to reach the fullness of life. I want to seek the fullness of my life.
Right.
And I'm going to do that by way of this physical activity. That's good. I wouldn't say that's like whimsical at all. It's
okay.
I mean, there's some quote, dead stoic.
Well,
it's sad for a man to grow old without knowing the extent to that of his body is capable.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's a great thing. It's like you knowing that your body is going to decay, and you're going to be next year you may do less, or maybe not. At some point, there will be a point of diminish. And you saying, I actually want to know what my peak is.
Yeah. Well, I didn't hit one of my goals this past year, 2024.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because I got close. But I just didn't feel like it was I didn't feel like I needed to push to make it happen.
What was that?
2,000 miles in a year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so I got close to 1,900.
Okay.
I was in the 1,800s, I think. But I think that was almost more than double I did the year before. And, 2,000 miles in a year is a lot
Sure.
for someone who's trying to do other things as well. But what I found was it didn't matter what time of day. There was some nights I was running at 11 p.m., 2 miles, 3 miles. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
It didn't matter also where I was in the world, which was cool. I found out that I loved, no matter where I was in the world traveling, I could learn a city faster because I ran it.
Wow.
And so I learned where things were. I was able to study. I just learned so much. And then I also learned more because I ran. Because I would listen to books and I would listen to podcasts and I would had conversations. And so, but it was something that I had to ask Erica if this was okay for me to do.
Yeah.
Because she had to prioritize it as well. Which goes back to one of the R's, the relationships.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Every single one of the reasons, which is your initial question, is like, why would people stop or why did people not do it? Well, it's either my relationships weren't aligned, my rhythms weren't aligned, my roles weren't aligned, my resources weren't aligned. And those are the four things. It can't possibly exist outside of any of those things. And at least for the environment.
Right.
For the person, yeah, great. Which is good. I think there are some things, we use it in like business. There are sometimes when a goal is worth giving up on.
Right.
Like I don't remember which company it is. I think it's Google's Loon Shot, or
I love that book.
Yeah, where they talk about celebrating the I'm not going to do this thing, or this is a bad idea, and we discovered that it was a bad idea. But the only reason that's good, and the only way that's good, is because it helped you refine and do something different, not just not do the thing. And every goal that we set should help benefit the things that we feel are most important, like our pillars.
Okay, question for you. What is a really good life hack when it comes to quitting or setting goals?
Like when to know when to quit?
Sure.
Or what happens when you quit and you don't want to quit?
It doesn't matter. What's a good life hack
Yeah.
that you have? How do you assess that? And maybe go ahead.
I was thinking about this the other day, going back to like death and talking about like the kids. And, it's something because my parents recently came in town and they were talking at the dinner table and they were talking about the always statements. They kind of fixate that because they're not true. They're hyperbolic. They're big fish, Matt Science like stories. My dad always did this. No, he didn't. Most of the time he did this. And that was a really encouraging moment for me. Where it's like, you don't have to have like the always things. Like my kids will always think that I took them to the coffee shop every single week. Every morning or every Thursday morning or Friday morning. They'll say something because they'll be older. I'll be gone. I'll be long dead. And they'll say, I remember when Dad always took me and he let us order and he let us have his card and he would swipe it. He always took us every week to it. No, I didn't. Most of the time I did. There were weeks that things happened. And I think that everybody's always is a little bit different. And it doesn't have to be as extreme as what you're describing. Ideally, yes. You want to be able to say, I know I logged 1,000 days. And that's really powerful. Sure. But I think the law of averages is also really powerful for the majority of the general population, is to say most of the time. I want to achieve this most of the time. And I can look back and I can say, yeah, like, I didn't do it every day that I committed to, but I was there the vast majority and more than previously. We're trying to figure out how to like give people for when they quit or if they already have in the year. And if you already have, it's great. Like if it's still important to you and you still think it's important and God or yourself impressed upon you that this is a something that I need to dedicate my time to, then go back and do it again. Because what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to create a undeniable trail of evidence that this is important.
Okay. So there was a moment where I said, this is interesting, I'm going to do this for a year. And guess what? The year came.
Right.
And I had an opportunity to quit.
Yeah.
And then I had, for the first time ever, Aaron, I had an idea. I had a thought. Why would I quit? This is a good thing. This is helping me out.
Right.
I found this to be positive in my life.
Yeah.
I need to have a good reason to quit good things.
Yeah.
And so what's important, I think, is also like, don't quit something that's good. Or don't quit something that's helpful. Or what's the lowest thing or the simplest thing that you can say, hey, I've actually not quit this in a long time, and I shouldn't.
Sure.
It's like there will be a day where I will have to stop running. And you know what? I believe, if I think about it like this, I believe I'll probably get more miles in a year if I was more strategic of when I didn't run.
Sure.
Maybe not. But because, I could maybe rest a day and run more the next day than on average.
Sure.
Maybe I'd get more miles in or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'd get faster because I'd allow my muscles to rest, which is really important. Or, there's other things. And so that's just not the parameter I'm in right now. And I'm not necessarily focused on that. I'd have to reassess that based off of my goals. My goals, though, are aligned right now. What if someone is a habitual quitter? What would you say to them to help them flip the script?
Yeah, I'm probably not a doctor, not a psychologist. I am a coach and a pastor, and I think we talked about this a few sessions ago. We wanting a change. Like we've heard it said where like somebody says like I just woke up and I was tired of looking at an unhealthy version of me in the mirror. I was tired of it. And I don't think people are tired enough with their life. They're maybe disgusted, they're maybe annoyed, but they're not resolute in fixing it. And I think like that's the honest question. And I will always come back to the story of Jesus and the man at the pool, and he asked, "Do you want to be healed? And do you actually want to change?" And I would actually say that. Like I would actually say like, well, first let's see if this goal is actually going to help you change. Awesome. Okay, then the second question is, do you want it bad enough?
Ooh, yeah.
As friends, I think that's really important. Is you have to be careful about who you share your goals with, because I don't want to share my goals with people who are like, dude, that sounds really cool, man. I want people to go, how? Why? What are you doing differently? Oh man, you're letting go of this. Like, I'll give you an example for us actively in our relationship right now. We're talking about possibly starting a few things. And then we went through and we did an inventory. Like that, just like our diet, we went through and did an inventory. All of our relationships, calendar, bank account, everything. Screen time, we showed each other. At our yearly meeting, my wife and I, we showed each other screen time. And I am appalled at the amount of time I spend on my phone. It is pure disgusting to me. But it went from I'm disgusted with it to I refuse to have this number be assigned to who I am. I have to not have this. And a lot of people respond differently to those things. I don't want that to be my mind. I want to change. I want to be healed of that. I want it so badly that I told her, and that we put mechanisms in our life to prevent that. And we said, we will not allow each other to do that. Now it's a new standard that we can hold each other. Not one that will like dogmatically condemn each other when we don't hit, but that is our aim. Our aim is that we want to change it and that we committed to that thing. One thing that helped me, to answer your question, was to mathematize it out.
Sure.
If I spend, let's call it 2 to 3 hours a day on any form of digital media, let's just be gratuitous, because we've gone up to 4 hours, we've gone down to 1 hour. It's a lot. That's between 45 days and 70 days of time in a year. I want to make sure people actually hear that number, because that's months. It's months of time. Not a couple weeks. I'm not losing a couple days. I'm losing months of my life yearly. And that is devastating. And if it doesn't disgust you enough for you to say, I do want that to change, then honestly, to answer your question, it's like there's nothing you can really do, because I can't force a friend and I can't force myself to want to change. You have to want it. You have to take personal faculty and authority over your life and say, I am a person for whom I am responsible. I have to do something. And if you aren't disgusted enough, then you're probably just going to be a quitter. And as much as that pains me to say and for me to identify, I don't wish that upon anybody. I want people to want to change. But you have to ask, do you want to change? Yeah. Do you hate this enough?
No, you have to be desperate enough. And desperation is the thing that I hear, and I'm like, I have to be so desperate that I will do something differently.
Right.
And something with the phone that I've heard recently is technology has made long-distance relationships easier and close-distance relationships harder.
Good. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And we can be more in each other's lives from distance, and we are less in each other's lives in close proximity.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true, and such a big deal. And I agree. It's really important for me. And as you think about quitting, and as we think about quitting together, I really have empathy for those people that can't or won't start or adjust or desire to change. And so something that I think quitting helps is what you just said, is measuring.
Yeah.
Because what you measure, you're measuring time. What you measure and what you think about measuring, and you think about putting a number to, is actually reveals what matters to you.
Oh, yeah. 1,000%.
It reveals what matters.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can dial in what matters, then I want to encourage that person to dream a little bit.
Sure.
Can you have dreams about what is possible, and then maybe you'll be desperate enough to get there, to that destination?
Yeah.
And that does help in terms of quitting, is the possibility of what could happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something that I'd like to encourage somebody with.
Yeah, you do a really good job of that because, like, I mean, for all the things, like anything good could be an idol, but you know, being able to reference like your weekly mileage, or like our fitness trackers, and say, oh man, like I have a reference point. Like we're really bad at like knowing just off the cuff, you know, like I don't know who said it, but if you don't know how much you need, the answer is always more. But really, you could just say, I know I need this much.
Yeah.
And this is how much I want to focus on. And people don't have the exacts.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's prayer or commitments or responsibilities, like be specific.
Yeah.
Be like, I want this. This is my number. You did a good job of this. Like I want to run every day, in my measurement of success, my litmus is what? It's 2 miles. And that's, I mean, you think that there's going to be a better framework, but the frameworks that you hear a lot about are probably the best ones, and SMART is still one of those things.
Sure.
And the second thing is measurable. I want to be able to measure it so I can say, did I hit it, yes or no? And by how much did I miss?
Specific, measurable,
attainable, realistic, time bound. Yeah. Those are like, that's a good way to set goals.
Smart goals.
To set smart goals. And I think, you know, we're all looking for a new framework, is
Sure.
what I was trying to communicate. And I find that the ones that you hear the test of time, it's like hearing the hits of music. And the reason you hear the same music from the 80s and 90s and 2000s, whatever, is because it was just the best.
Yeah.
Like on the law of averages. So we'll always think back to those songs. Same deal with frameworks. It's like, well, the reasons that we hear them over and over again is because they're standing the test of time.
Yeah.
And sure, there's other ones that are very similar and maybe more easy to recognize, but when you make goals for yourself, you want to be able to articulate it versus like, I want to do this more. Well, how much more?
Yeah.
And by when? And how will you know that you did it?
Yeah. Right.
And you know what? Here's another thing.
Well, because you can't celebrate and that's a really important piece, is
Yeah.
you got to celebrate the wins that you have.
I had this thought, and it devastated me. Because I work from home 3 days a week. My wife hears how I interact in my office. We also have people that we disciple that come into our home, and then we'll do meetings with people. And I'm very structured. I'm pretty structured. I'll have an agenda. I'll premeditate on the things, and I'll help people set goals, like in my workplace and in discipleship, whatever. And my wife, I'll never forget this moment. We sat down, and she grabbed my arm and she says, "I'm going to tell you something, and I don't want you to be upset. I want you to know I'm just giving you permission. When I hear you structure and give agendas and all that, I get really excited, and I'm envious, because I want you to know that you can do that with me. You can be as structured and do exactly that with me. And you ask me the same questions. You make it as like even like in some ways like as formal as like those meetings that you have with other people." And it was this wonderful moment of conviction in our marriage where I said, okay, like that's, I have the capacity. I have the ability to be structured and to set goals and to encourage and to form patterns in my life that are productive to a relationship in my workplace and then in like church, but I'm not doing it in my family. And so we flipped it on our head. Now it's like, I know I can. This happens first. And what in the encouragement is for everybody in the audience is, you likely do a lot of your best, you being your best, in other spaces. Why don't you do it for your own space? Like I see this all the time, where like I'll meet engineers, I'll meet people who work for people like Apple or Google or like Fortune 500 companies, and they're brilliant and they're really good at their job and they're really successful, but their personal life sucks. It's really bad. Their personal commitments, and they empty out everything else and they pour all of their energies here. They have the ability. They're putting the energy in the wrong order because they think it's a zero-sum game. You think, well, if I spend all my energy with Trevor in the workplace, structuring our relationships, setting goals, setting MBOs or OKRs and measuring it a certain way, then I'll have more space here.
Right.
No. If you spend more space here and you structure your personal life, it will overflow into every other area. Versus you have to live this like false dichotomy, this split life between this business part of you and this ministry part of you and your personal life. And I think going back to your question, people who fail in their goals, it's like, well, you just don't think your personal life is as important as this other area of your life. That's what it really is. You require extrinsic motivation like money to behave a certain way. It's like, no. You have the ability to be professional and show up and be disciplined. Why do you give your best to your employer and not to yourself? Because if you do it here, you'll be able to do it everywhere else, not the other way around. The inverse is worse. Give it everywhere else, and I gave it to ministry, and I gave it to all my other friends, and I gave it to whatever, and I gave nothing to my family and myself. Awful. So you're just dying.
Yeah, nobody really wants that at the end of the day.
Right.
And the point is to stay in the game, to keep going. Because if you quit, we all lose.
Sure.
If you stop, we all lose. Because we all need each other to stay in the game, to stay in the game of life, to stay living, to keep going. And I think that's what's important as we bring this part B to a close. Yes, it's quitting day, but it doesn't have to be. And by the way, if you quit, we all lose. And to stay winning is to stay in the game, to keep going. So you are capable, you are valuable. What if you just restructured it? What if you just restructured how you see? What if you restructured who was in your life? What if you restructured the environment? What if you restructured the weight that you put on things? What if you just simply restructured it and you prioritized in a more valuable way?
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity for you. If you're still listening to us, there's so much opportunity for you. And that's why we're having this conversation, is because we value you, and we value each other. So we're having an honest conversation with each other, and we're talking about things that we're convicted of. I'm even being convicted right now of things that I need to adjust in 2025. But guess what? There's time. Why? Because there's always time.
Yeah.
There's always time until there's no more time.
Yeah.
And so don't prolong it. Don't put it off. And let's see what could happen if we just lean into this. You are not a quitter. It's something you have done before. You've quit before. I've quit before. Every human has quit before.
Yeah.
But guess what? That doesn't have to define your future.
Yeah.
So take a deep breath and let's lean in. Thank you for joining us in this episode. I thought it was a blast.
Yeah.
Part B. Hope you guys have a great day. Don't quit. If you quit, we all lose.
Yeah.
Full Vantage Podcast. We'll see you soon. See you later. Anything else you'd like to say before we roll?
No.
That felt good.
Felt good.
All right. See you guys later. Bye.